Hello everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making This Place channel. Today we're going to be talking about the main protagonist deck from the Deer Days game, that being Gramgrace. Gramgrace is a very interesting deck with having originally no real support. It has actually finally got a deck set that actually gave it quite a bit of support, although most of the stuff that was in that deck set were already released or promos, so unfortunately it didn't get as many new cards as something like Favrneel, who had originally no support. Is still a cool unit nonetheless. It has two abilities. The first one says, well actually it's three abilities, I forgot the first one all the time. Your Persona Ride will increase the power of your back row units, so Persona Ride will affect the whole board. The second ability is an act, so Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and you choose a card from your hand, and you call it to back row, center, rear, so it'll be behind your Gramgrace. And so on the turn, that unit can attack from the back row, and it gets plus 10k. And then at the end of the battle, your back row, center, rear guard attacked, you put that unit into your soul, draw a card. So a lot of card draw with this deck. You're going to be filtering through your deck quite quickly in most scenarios. You're trying to deck thin as much as you can so that you can draw into some of your better pieces and then hope for better trigger checks when you attack. As for the ride line, we're playing the Blaster Javelin and Blaster Dark ride line, simply for that extra aggression on turn 2, which is something that can actually pressure a lot of the decks currently in the meta. Things like Drajul might not be able to handle it. Things like Youthberg in that early game, they might not be able to handle the aggression of a twin driving grade 2 Vanguard, as well as some of the cards in the deck giving you access to a little bit more aggro. If you go first or second, well, you're just swinging with it in most cases, but most decks grade 1 don't really do much, so Javelin is just being a free call to allow you to just retire or something with Blaster Dark without having to commit to something to board that could just get retired or removed. Then for the main deck, we have obviously 3 more copies of Gramgrace, because obviously if we're getting Persona Ride to the whole board, well, we want to be doing that as often as we can. And in that same vein, we're also playing the Chalice to give ourselves 4 copies of Persona Ride, because we want to be doing that as often. There is a way to cycle back the Gramgraces in case you do need Persona Ride, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Then we have one more grade 3, and that is Favrneel. Favrneel? Sorry, these names are weird. This is a grade 3 that allows your Vanguard to get triple drive, as well as becoming a 23k attacker. So if this is in the back row, center, rear guard, at the end of battle it attacks if your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3. So you can't do this if you go first, but you can still just use it, call it into, or put it into soul, because there is a way to cycle back these grade 3s that are in soul. But you can soul blast 1, discard a card, and then you choose a Vanguard with Gramgrace in this card name, and it gets plus 10k in a drive. So triple driving Vanguard's pretty good. We play as many as we can because we want to find these when we really need them. And if we can't find these, then our grade, our multi-attack is kind of a little bit lackluster. You're fine with maybe swinging with like a grade 2 during your first grade 3 turn, if you're going first, but you really want to start filtering through these and getting them every turn, so that's why we play a full set. Then we got the new card we got from the Gramgrace Strike deck set, which is Diffin. So Diffin has 2 separate abilities. The first is when your grade 3 good unit in the center column attacks if you have Vanguard with Gramgrace in its card name. That attacking unit gets plus 5k. So it'll give some extra power to the unit that attacks behind Van, and it also gives power to Gramgrace itself. It has a second ability if it's in the front row, that when it attacks if you have Vanguard with Gramgrace and your units in the center column attack twice, it gains plus 15k for a CB, making it a 25k attacker. If you're on Persona Ride turn, that's a whole 35k without any boosters, which means even through 2 defensive, this guy can still hit, which is very good. That's why we play a full set, because if you have 2 of these in your front row, every time your grade 3 center column attacks, it'll get plus 10k more. So they just stack. You could even have a full board, although I wouldn't recommend that. But if you had a full board, you would give plus 20k to the units in the center attacking, which would be a big amount of power. But usually we're going to have either 1 or 2 of these in the front row, because we do play a couple other grade 2s. One of the first throwaways that you'll probably see is Drilling Angel. I don't have a full set of the exact copy, But when it's placed on rear, you can put a card from your drop into your soul, look at top 3, and then if you find a card with the same name, you get to call it. This is more for creating soul. There is a card specifically for Gramgrace that just soul charges one, but I'm not a huge fan of random soul charging in most decks because most of the time you'll hit a trigger or you'll hit something that you really don't want to. But with Drilling Angel, you can just put the cards you put from discarding up to right up, so won't feel as bad, right? So that's why we play the full set of Drilling Angel. If you hit something off of it, pretty cool, but I wouldn't bank on it. A lot of the time you're just gonna put the card in soul. If you hit something with it, that'll be pretty cool, but most of the time it's just a extra soul card. Next up for grade 2s, we have 3 copies of Cadwalla, because again, we want to filter because we want to hit the pieces we need. So you can call these as early as grade 2 and just commit a couple more units to the board. But at the end of battle, it attacks a Vanguard. If you have 4 more units, you can Soul Blast one, retire it, and then you check top 3 for a grade 2 or greater unit card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. And if you don't reveal a card, you draw a card. As you saw, we have quite a few grade 2s and grade 3s, so this should hit something. Maybe it hits another Cadwalla, which wouldn't be awful, or it hits a Drilling Angel, it hits a Diffin, right? It hits a Gramgrace, anything like that. Since it puts it to hand, it allows us to have the, if we hit a Gramgrace, we can get it for Persona Ride, which is very good. Then we have 2 copies of Maple. Good pitch fodder, it can come back. Just an extra unit to get the full board whenever we need it. If you can pitch these early on, awesome, because you'll just get them back. And I've only 2 because some people play the 1, but I like having the 2 because if you can find the extra one early on, it just becomes a good pitch fodder. And then in the late game, you can just call it after you've resurrected the 1, and then you can just use both to intercept and then just get one back from one after that. So 2 copies of that. Then moving on to the grade 1s, we have a full set of Painkiller Angel because card draw, card draw, card draw. That's kind of it. You just use this to Soul Blast one, kill itself, draw a card. There is a lot of cards that remove themselves from board. I mean, think Painkiller, think Cadwalla, think the grade 3 Favrneel or whatever. It's hard to say his name. It's very confusing. But we do this because we don't want to have to lose our units to removal. Things like Messiah, things like Shiranui, things like Gandiva. I mean, there's a lot of removal options, so we'd rather not give them good targets to hit us with. So that's why we have these. A lot of cards that just get rid of themselves so that we don't give the opponent any cards to really use against us. And Painkiller is just a free draw. So then we have 3 copies of another Gramgrace specific card in Locked. So in the back row rear guard circle, at the end of turn, if you have Vanguard with Gramgrace, you can retire this and choose a grade 3 unit card from your soul and put it into your hand. So this allows you to recycle Gramgraces, it allows you to recycle the other grade 3, be able to use that efficiently. Only 3 copies because you'll either draw into the other ones you need, or you'll just be able to recycle these a couple times. Worst case, you could just keep it on board if you don't want to recycle anything. So it is a cost, so you can just choose not to pay it. So it'll just be an AK thing on board that you can just have sit for when you need the card to come back to soul. It'll be perfect for you. Then another grade 1 we're playing is Toll Pass. I know this card is quite expensive because of Luard, but if you don't have access to Toll Pass, you can play any other card to get extra power. This card is just some extra calling as well as some shield because we have the soul gets used pretty quickly, so the cards from your right deck are going to be taken out of there pretty quickly. So this is just some extra way of getting some extra shield or getting some extra units to make a full board if need be, deck thinning for things like Cadwalla, things like Diffin, things like Lock Day, things like the grade 3 to get that extra drive. So just 2 copies of that. Then we have 3 PGs and the Blitz Order, nothing to say here. Obviously the Blitz Order is good if you have it played, and if not, play a full set of PGs, which is what we did before. Moving on to triggers, we're playing the Keter OT because being able to give drive checks isn't crazy. You could change this out for the blue OT or the red OT, but I think the Keter OT is pretty good. You get drive checks. You always like drive checks, right? But I could see myself playing either blue OT to have more crits and being able to get your pieces back, or I can see myself playing red OT to just maybe get that extra multi-attack. Then we have 4 fronts because we get a bunch of power. Sure, the unit in the back row won't get the effect of the front, but extra shield to stay alive, as well as being just a way to give the whole of our front row power. Usually your attack columns are the back row rear guard behind Gramgrace, then Gramgrace itself, so these front triggers will activate most of the time. Then we've got a set of crits. The effect crits are included this time. They could come up quite often because sometimes you run out of soul. As you saw, there is quite a few cards that use soul. So if Painkiller Angel isn't doing it, then I would recommend playing the effect crits. But if you don't have them or can't afford them, playing vanilla crits is fine. The 1 or 2 games where that happens or this comes up probably won't be as detrimental if you just play vanilla crits. And then we just have a set of vanilla heals. You can always change these to fit your metagame. If you have multi-attack ones, you play low multi-attack. If you have a lot of stride deck sets, you play the higher grade. If you have things that gain crit, then you play that one. But we're just playing the vanilla ones because not much is needed right now besides just the extra ones. But honestly, this deck is very fun. Kat did the fresh deck profile for this deck back when we were originally starting up. And now the deck has received so much support that I actually think it can do pretty well. It is very aggressive. It can just start throwing cards out there and just put out a lot of damage. But this has been Leo. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on Cray.